Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome to another edition of Inside Arsenal. It is Tuesday, it's the 2nd of January. I hope you've all recovered. If you went out on New Year's Eve and had a day yesterday licking your wounds, shall we say, from the night before, I hope you had a very good New Year's Eve. And yeah, New Year's Day wasn't too bad. The hangovers weren't too bad. Those days are gone for me now. I'm afraid I can just look back on them longingly of being out and about celebrating turn of New Year. I was, nursing a very ill child yesterday. Oh no, not very ill. That's pushing it. Nursing an ill child yesterday. My little boy is not very well at the moment, but he's getting better, so nothing to worry about too much. But that was my New Year's Day. I hope you guys had more fun than that. Aside from, of course, the Arsenal defeat at Fulham, still hanging over everyone, I would say. So we'll look ahead as what's to come. Today in the show, we'll talk a little bit about the Liverpool game, which is coming up in the FA Cup. Haven't yet been told when the press conference is yet. Haven't had the email from Arsenal telling us when the press conference is at Colney this week, but I suspect it will probably be on the Friday. So we'll look ahead a little bit towards that game. Wonder what Mikel Arteta will do as he looks to bounce back from the two successive league defeats. We'll talk about Thomas Partey, who is staying at Arsenal. Decision has now been made about him. He's not going to AFCON with Ghana, so we'll look at that. Look at what Chris Hughton has had to say. Talk a little bit about last night's game, the Liverpool game as well, which leaves Arsenal 5 points behind the league leaders now. Got some comments and questions from you guys, of course, to wrap things up. But we'll start with Thomas Partey. That's the big news at the moment with Arsenal. Came out yesterday afternoon. Ghana announcing their squad for the upcoming Africa Cup of Nations and no Thomas Partey in it. He is going to stay at Arsenal, continue to work on his recovery. Talks have been ongoing for quite a while now between Ghana, Thomas Partey and Arsenal about what to do. Ghana wanted to give him as much time as possible to see if they could include him. Arsenal, as you can imagine, were very, very wary about letting him go away when he hasn't yet returned and played for Arsenal after such a significant injury. And it was decided that he is going to stay. Now, this has led to a lot of people seen on social media, speculating, oh, that's it. Thomas Partey is not going to play for Arsenal for months. If he's not going to Ghana, he's not going to be able to play. I'm not sure that is the case. I'm told he's doing very, very well now, and he's in the final stages of his recovery. He has been for a while. I think the Liverpool game this weekend was actually the game they were Arsenal and Thomas Partey certainly were aiming for. I don't think that's now going to happen, but I don't think he's absolutely miles away, and I don't think this decision means that he's miles away and he's had a massive setback. Certainly, as far as I'm aware, they've been told he's progressing pretty well, and there is a chance that he could play for Arsenal while AFCON is going on. So we'll have to wait and see if that is the case. But for Ghana, obviously, it's a big, big blow. Chris Hughton has been talking about it. I'll bring up some of the quotes here. This is what Chris Hughton, who's obviously the Ghana manager now, had to say. He said, Thomas Partey for sure. And I say this not in a detrimental way to the squad that we have, but he is one of our most important players. This we know, and withstanding his injury, he certainly would be in the squad. We know the quality of player that he is. This is a player that has had a very substantial injury. I've spent a lot of time over this period with Thomas and also engaging with the medical staff at Arsenal. They will treat this injury with caution, and so will the player. This is a big injury for him and the biggest injury that he's ever had. The most important thing for me as head coach and our association is to give him the support that he needs through this period of time. From all the information that we've been given, the timelines of his recovery and the caution that will be taken will not meet our timelines for the AFCON. So those are the words of Chris Hughton, the Ghana manager. And again, there where he says it will not meet our sort of timelines for AFCON, that doesn't necessarily mean that he wouldn't be ready to play at some point in the tournament if they'd have called him up. But he's played no football for months. Can you go into a major tournament like that having had basically no minutes at all, having finished your recovery away at the tournament itself? It's just not ideal. If you want to win the AFCON, you need everyone fit and firing, even if it's a player as good as Thomas Partey that you're talking about. So again, that doesn't necessarily mean he won't be back by the time AFCON's finished. It's just he's not going to be fully up to speed and ready to just hit the ground running in the tournament. And that is understandable because, as Chris Hughton says, this is a really big injury, really bad thigh issue. I was told it wasn't a complete tear of it, but it was a very, very bad one. And the operation that he had, the procedure that he had, was done with the aim of trying to prevent this ever happening again. Fingers crossed that is the case. If Thomas Partey comes back, when Thomas Partey comes back, you want him at his very, very best, very, very quickly, and you want to really try and ensure that he doesn't get injured again, because he's been missed hugely. He'd have played such a huge part in this season. Hopefully, he still can play such a huge part in this season. For Arsenal, I think this is a really good thing. Obviously, for Ghana, it's a disappointment. I can understand that. But for Arsenal, it's absolutely a good thing. You know, they will be secretly delighted with this because, as I said at the start, the last thing they wanted was him to fly away all the way over to Ghana to have to do the final part of his recovery there and then potentially start playing slap bang in the middle of an international tournament when the demands are so high and you can't really be given time to bed in, so to speak. So, yeah, good news, I think, from an Arsenal point of view, Thomas Partey. But let me know what you guys think of it. Are you happy? How are you kind of feeling about the impending return of Thomas Partey to this Arsenal team, and how important is he going to be over the second half of the season if, and it has to be a big if, he can stay fully fit from now until May? Okay, elsewhere, news from Fabrizio Romano yesterday that the talks between Takehiro Tomiyasu and Arsenal, which we know have been going on for a while now, are advancing to the final stages. According to Fabrizio, those talks have been going well, as far as I'm aware, and the belief is on all sides that this is going to be a deal that is signed sooner rather than later. And Fabrizio reporting that it is now in the final stages, which is great news. Yes, Tomiyasu has his injury issues at times, but look, when he's fit, he's proven how good a player he is. He's been in fantastic form this season before his latest injury. It's good that he's back now. Unfortunately, he's going to be heading off with Japan for the Asia Cup, which is a big blow to Arsenal, especially as we're waiting to find out the full extent of Alexander Zinchenko's latest injury. But look, Tomiyasu is a quality footballer on and off the pitch, brings an awful lot of versatility, can play centre-back, right-back, left-back. Be mad if Arsenal didn't reward him for his performances with a new contract and kept him at the club. Just wouldn't make any sense to me whatsoever to let Tomiyasu go. And it's a really good piece of business to get it done, adding to the recently signed contracts of Saka, Martinelli, Gabriel, Ramsdale, Odegaard, so many key players have signed new deals at Arsenal, and Tomiyasu hopefully going to be the latest. And then there's going to be Ben White as well, with those talks ongoing with Ben White, who has been coming in for a bit of criticism this season for his performances. I think it's very, very apparent that he's not playing the way he did at times last season, getting on the overlap as much as times this season. But we know he's carrying this injury. We know he's been carrying it all season. And I think it's just by watching Ben White play, I think it's very, very apparent that this injury is potentially hampering him a little bit at the moment, and he's not being able to play at a full 100%. And unfortunately, in an ideal situation, Arsenal could, I don't know the full extent of the injury in terms of how it can be managed or in terms of how it can be potentially fixed. Would it be an operation? Would it be, are Arsenal trying to basically manage him through till the end of the season where he then can have an operation to fix this injury? Ideally, they'd be in a position where they'd be able to maybe, if that was the case, they'd be able to let him do it now rather than, manage him through the season. But with the injuries that they've got, with Tomiyasu out, with Yuri and Timber out, there's just no real options for Arsenal, and they're having to continue to play Ben White. They gave him that sort of period of time in the build up to December where they took him out the side a bit and they gave him a bit of rest. They've obviously got a decent patch now after the Liverpool game. They've got a couple of weeks. They're going to head over to Dubai, which will give him rest, and hopefully that will see him get up to speed a little bit more. But it's that sort of thing just shows the importance of Tomiyasu. I think, when you've got injury issues at right back, centre back, left back, and you've got a player like Tomiyasu who can come in and play in any of those positions and play very, very well. He's equally adept in any of those positions, then it's so crucial to keep him around. And yeah, I'm delighted that he will be signing this new contract. And as Fabrizio says here, says that those talks are now in the final stages. So hopefully we'll get news or confirmation of the new deal very, very soon. Okay, big game in the Premier League last night. Newcastle versus Liverpool. Liverpool were absolutely brilliant. Their XG was 7. Let me get it. I've forgotten what it was now. I was looking at the XG Philosophy's tweet last night. Let me just try and find it. It was 7.53 XG for Liverpool, 0.7 for Newcastle. That is truly, truly remarkable. It was so one-sided. How it was only 4-2 and your 2-goal game, I've no idea. And it could have been even tighter had this penalty, if you're watching this on YouTube, not been given. Now, honestly, I've been getting pelters all night long from Liverpool fans after I tweeted that it was just a blatant dive. And this is where football fans just baffle me out. Everyone wants referees to be better. Everyone wants VAR to be better. Everyone wants officials to be better. And yet Liverpool fans, who all know deep down that this was a dive, it was an absolute blatant dive. It's so clear that it was a dive. And yet they've all convinced themselves that it wasn't, that there was contact, and that Jota went down because of the contact and was tripped because of the contact. There was contact. I'm not denying that, but there is no way that Jota falls down in that because of the contact. He falls down because he wants to fall down. He dives. He absolutely dives. And it should never, ever, ever be given as a penalty. Even if it was given on field, the VAR should look at that and just realise it for what it is, a dive, and it should not be given. What is the point of VAR if this penalty is given, is not overturned? I just do not understand it. It's as clear a dive as you can see. All this rubbish, he's running at full pace, so any sort of trip will fall down. It's rubbish. He carries on running for a good couple of paces before deciding, yeah, I'm just going to fall over here. Maybe I've pushed this a little bit far. Maybe I might not score. So I'm just going to fall over. It's so blatant. And it's just ridiculous that it's not overturned by VAR. And this is why I can't stand VAR. Really, even look, and this isn't a Liverpool thing. I'm absolutely exactly the same with the Odegaard handball at Anfield. And I don't understand how any Arsenal fan can look at that and think that's not a penalty. It is a penalty. It's a handball. It's the most blatant handball you're ever going to see. The whole rubbish of, he slips, he's trying to get his balance. It's not. He panics and he puts his hand out and he stops the ball. It's a penalty. It should be a penalty. I can understand why it wasn't given on the field because the referee was blocked off and couldn't see Odegaard properly. But the VAR gets the same angles we see. It's a penalty. He handballs it. It's just a blatant penalty. And this was a blatant dive. And how both of those incidents aren't overturned by VAR just makes a mockery for me of what VAR is, because it's clear and obvious what happened on both of those cases. And yet the VAR's refusing to get involved because they want the on-field decision to stand. And that whole on-field decision thing, it just clouds everything. Whoever's watching it in the studio in VAR is too scared to get involved. It's too scared to tell their mate on the pitch to go and overturn their decision. And it's just making a mockery of VAR. And it just, honestly, it's just like, what is the point of it? What is the point of it? And I don't want to take anything away from Liverpool because they would have won this game anyway. And they absolutely deserved to win this game. They were brilliant. They played such good football, created so many chances. And they absolutely fully deserved their win. And whatever happened, this penalty, I can't imagine Newcastle would have gone up and snatched a 3-3 draw towards the end anyway. But it just shouldn't be a penalty whatsoever. But yeah, that's just, I just couldn't believe watching it. But Liverpool were absolutely brilliant. Finsbury Phil here has got in touch, said, just watched Liverpool versus Newcastle. Liverpool's speed in transition is like night and day when compared to Arsenal. 3 passes, 5 seconds, and they're at the other end of the pitch. Even the best defence would have no time to set. Absolutely. Look, it is, compared to what we're seeing from Arsenal at the moment, what we saw from Liverpool last night was completely different. I fully accept that. But Arsenal have played some really good football this season at times. This season, they didn't against Fulham, but they have done recently. So, and also, Liverpool were brilliant last night, but it was only 2 weeks ago Arsenal went to Liverpool and barely gave them a chance. The only chance they really had, aside from their goal, was because Odegaard and Zinchenko fell over, kicked each other and fell over and left a 4-on-1 situation. Other than that, this brilliant attack of Liverpool's that we saw last night barely created anything at Anfield. So Arsenal are perfectly, a very, very good side who can go to Liverpool with this great attack and shut them out pretty much completely. And it's not like Liverpool have been doing this every single week. It was only a couple of weeks ago, they were really, really poor against Fulham, but their attackers did get them out of the situation with those 2 late goals to win the game as well. So, but they were great. They were a joy to watch last night. And look, I think when you look at the options Liverpool have, and you look at what they can do off the bench, who they can bring on, how they can change their attack around, that's what's night and day compared to Arsenal. When they can bring on players like Jota or Gakpo, players like that who can really change the game in a final third. And Arsenal were, reluctantly, which you have to say it probably is reluctantly, bringing on players like Reece Nelson, who Mikel clearly doesn't trust too much to even start in a Premier League game. That's a big, big difference. And potentially that could be what is the difference between Arsenal and Liverpool going on and winning a title this season. But there's still a long way to go. I'm not absolutely in panic stations at the moment, because of those 2 defeats. I mean, you look at the league table, Liverpool now 5 points clear of Arsenal. Arsenal down in 4th. What a difference a week makes. After that game at Anfield, Arsenal were top at Christmas, and now they're 5 points behind because of these 2 really, really costly defeats that they have just suffered. It's very, very tight. Only 6 points separating the top 5 there. West Ham into 6th now. And it is really, really tight. And Arsenal are going to have to bounce back, and they're going to have to bounce back very, very quickly. They do have this time to reset, as Mikel Arteta called it, with the lack of games coming up over January. Got the FA Cup this weekend against Liverpool. Be very interesting to see what Arsenal do there in terms of their team selection. and then they've got to wait until the 20th, I think it is, until the Crystal Palace game. There will be some games before that, but Arsenal won't be playing that weekend because of this sort of rotation for the winter break that they are having. And time for Arsenal to regroup and go again. And hopefully when they come back, they will hit the ground running against Crystal Palace, because they certainly need to now. And that league table says it all. Just sort of looking ahead to the Liverpool game in the FA Cup, it's going to be very interesting to see what Mikel Arteta does and what Jurgen Klopp does as well, how they approach this. I think both managers would have liked to have really heavily rotated for the third round of the FA Cup, because of a game of this magnitude, though, makes it very, very difficult to do that. Not sure if Salah's going to be there or not for Liverpool, if he's going to play in that one and then head off. I haven't seen a definitive answer to that, if Salah's going to play or not. For Arsenal, I think Mikel's going to go pretty much full strength, whatever full strength is at the moment in terms of his team. I can't imagine, he's going to give minutes to players who desperately need minutes. As I said, there's no league game for a couple of weeks after this. They're heading off to Dubai. So I think, he'll want to go through and he'll know the importance of this game in terms of bouncing back. Yes, it's not a league game, but if Arsenal can go and beat Liverpool this weekend, the league leaders who are flying at the moment, if they can beat them at home, then that could be exactly what's needed just to get them going again this season. And, another defeat, a third in a row, albeit not in the Premier League, would be a real hammer blow to Arsenal, and exit in the FA Cup at the third round stage as well. Will basically leave them, you just got two competitions to go for then for the second half of the season. So, Mikel Arteta, make no mistake about it, will want to win this game. He needs to win this game. So I'd be very, very surprised if he made too many changes from that. So I think I'd be very surprised if it's not too dissimilar to the game against Fulham. I imagine Gabriel Jesus will come back in for this one. Again, I would love to see Emile Smith-Rowe start this game. I know you lot get bored of me talking about it, but it just pains me to see him sitting on the bench when he could at the moment, when Arsenal's struggling and need something a little bit different. To see someone who can provide that sitting on the bench and not getting any minutes, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But we shall wait and see on that. Like I said, Mikel's press conference, I think, is going to be on Friday, but we haven't had final confirmation of that yet. It's certainly be interesting to get his views ahead of that game when he does give the press conference. Right, on to some of your comments and questions. The first one here says, wish you all the best for 2024. Thank you very much. Says, I think in the summer, Edu has some big sales to do. Tierney, Lokonga, Tavares should receive a good fee. Same goes for current players like Trossard, Rambo, Eddie, and probably Nelson. Need some improvement in all four departments on the pitch. Big year ahead. Yeah, look, I agree. We have said that every single summer, though, haven't we, for a while now? And Arsenal's still been struggling. Like Tierney, we all thought would go this summer. It didn't happen. Hopefully it will this time when he comes back from loan. Again, though, it's not been ideal yet, this loan period for Arsenal, because he's been injured for pretty much all of it. He got that really nasty hamstring injury, which he's just come back from. Now, you want Tierney to be playing, to be putting himself in the shop window. If he spends another season basically being injured and missing all of it, then I can't imagine there's going to be too many people banging on Arsenal's door at the moment. Arsenal really need Tierney to perform. And when you look at Lokonga and Tavares, it's a very similar situation. Sambi's back now, which is good. He's playing for Luton, which is good, but he suffered that injury, which has basically ruled him out for the whole season so far. He's only just come back from it. And again, you send these players out on loan. I don't think any of them have been sent out on loan with the aim of getting them first in football to come back and push for a place at Arsenal. They've been sent out on loan to put them in the shop window to hopefully drive up more of a market for the next summer. But all of them have not really been playing. Tavares as well has been out for Forest. He's back now in and around the bench, but he's not really getting any minutes. So it might be a bit of a struggle. You look at the other ones, I wouldn't be selling Trossard. Not for me. I'd be keeping Trossard. I know he's not in the greatest of form, and I think I've got a comment coming about that later on in the show, but I think he's got a lot to offer, and I wouldn't be selling him. But the others, Rambo, I think this is the summer to sell Eddie, personally. I agree. And probably Reece Nelson. I'd throw Emile into that mix as well, as much as, again, it pains me to say it because I want to see him succeed at Arsenal. But if Arteta's not using him, then what's the point in keeping him around? You may as well sell him and bring in a player that you actually want to use. So it is a big summer, no doubt about it. There's going to be more investment in the team. There has to be in the summer. You've got to continue trying to build and improve. And so it is going to be a big summer. I absolutely agree. This is the one on Trossard from Breaky. He says, Trossard also seems out of form. He doesn't improve things when he's subbed on. His continued inability to take a decent corner is baffling. Like, if he knows he's a corner taker, someone coach him how to take him. Yeah, he's not been great when it comes to set pieces recently, but he's a decent set piece taker normally. He's just on a bad run of form at the moment. Look, he's not had a great few weeks, but you don't have to go back too far when Jesus was out and Trossard came in as the 9 scored a few goals in the Champions League, scored in the league games as well. I think it was at Burnley scored. He was scoring goals then and contributing. He's just another player at the moment whose form has fallen off a cliff a little bit, but he's a very, very good player, Trossard. I don't like where Mikel's been using him. I don't like him in that left 8 role at all. I think his best position is the false 9. And he's not really been used there recently. He's been either playing out on the left or he's been playing in the left 8 role. And so I don't think Arteta is using him in his best role. And maybe that's why we're not seeing him produce that much. But he's a really good footballer, Leandro Trossard. And, he's not done much wrong since he's arrived a year ago, pretty much today. Well, a little bit a year ago, last year in January. And I wouldn't be cutting my losses on Leandro Trossard just yet. He's got an awful lot to give for Arsenal. I think he's a very, very good footballer. Here's one from what's this? Agis Bray. It says, "Hi Charles. 2 things that seem to have regressed this year from last year: the ball progression via the left side. On the left side last year, Zinchenko and Xhaka were both good at ball progression, and we got the ball up the field better. This season, I don't see Havertz progressing the ball as much, and it's more Martinelli on the outside by himself with a double team. I also wonder if we need a right-footed player in the left 8 in order to balance out the team and provide a shooting threat, since our left-footed players on the left side of the field rarely shoot. As for set pieces, not defending corners has cost us 4 points already against Fulham and maybe West Ham. We have a bigger team this year with Rice and Havertz replacing Xhaka and Partey, yet somehow we aren't defending them as well. Is this regression to the mean, or the new personnel not as reliable on set plays? I'm not just referring to Rice and Havertz. Yeah, the set plays is interesting. Like Arsenal, towards the end of last season, were dreadful on set plays as well. Arsenal, they kept conceding from set plays. It became a real thing, didn't it? And it seemed like that had been sorted out this season, but certainly the last couple of games that we really, really disappointed with those goals that they've conceded. I'm hoping that that's not the norm. It's just a little bit of a sort of coincidence that it's happened. And you have to say the one against West Ham was just a brilliant, brilliant header from Mavropanos. The one against Fulham was just really rank bad defending. They had opportunities to clear it. There was a bit of a deflection, wasn't it? I think of Gabriel, the initial one, and then they should have cleared, and it bounced around, and it was just poor defending. So hopefully that, as I said, just proves to be a bit of a coincidence and it's not the norm. I think the Xhaka thing that you point out, the fact that he's not there in that left 8 role, is just a real position. Now, Havertz has done much, much better recently. Yes, he wasn't great against Fulham, but he's just come back from missing a game. He wasn't maybe not quite up to speed, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to make excuses for him, but he'd been much, much better up to that point. Now, he deservedly won Arsenal's Player of the Month award for December or November, wasn't it? But there's no doubt that they hugely, hugely miss Granit Xhaka. And that position has been a problem this season, 100%. They basically carried Havertz for the first few months, and that was an issue, even though he's now started to improve and he has started to contribute more. There's no doubt if Granit Xhaka was still here, then Arsenal would be a hell of a lot better side this season. He was so influential last season. He provided so much. And maybe you look at why Martinelli's form has fallen off this season. It is because that left 8 role, he's played with Havertz, he's played with Trossard, he's played with Rice at times. He's not just had, last year he knew exactly what was going on. Granit was there every single time, pretty much. And they knew each other's game. And that allowed, Gabriel Martinelli to do whatever he wanted to do. This time he's got different partners pretty much every other week. And it's very hard to strike up a relationship and a partnership with someone like that. And so I think when you do look at Martinelli's form and you do talk about it, you do question it, I think you do probably have to look at what's going on in that left 8 role as a reason why maybe he's not hitting the heights that he did last season. So I think it's a really good comment and point. Granit was so influential, he was so good last season, and Arsenal miss him. They miss him massively. And I think if he was still here, they'd be a much, much better side. But he's not. And so you've got to try and move on and hope that the replacements and whoever Mikel does use there over the second half of the season do start to improve a little bit more. And last one here. Happy New Year to you and your family. Thank you, Luzma. I think it is Luzma Moore. When Ramsdale dad said that son had lost his smile, it was evident. And watching our team play this season since Raya, to no fault his own came in, it appears the entire team has lost their smile. Do you think the players are still playing for the manager? We think camaraderie is underrated and the players may be down in tools. I don't buy into that whatsoever. No, I'm afraid. Look, it's 2 games. It's 2 bad defeats. Go back 2 games. Everyone was smiling after Anfield. Everyone was smiling after Luton. Everyone, there was massive camaraderie there at all. It's just 2 games. I think the reaction, although kind of understandable because of the way the world we live in with immediate social media reaction now, I think it is over the top to these defeats. They're bad. They're worrying. The Fulham one was worrying, but all this talk, I'm seeing Arteta out and the players aren't playing for their manager. It's just like, it just feels a little bit too reactionary to me to a single or 2 defeats, because you go back to Liverpool, you go back to the week before that when they played Brighton at the Emirates, and it was brilliant. They were brilliant. They won 2-0. It was one of the best performances I've ever seen from Arsenal under Mikel Arteta against a really good Brighton team. And everyone was smiling then. There was complete camaraderie then. It's no surprise they looked a bit miserable after the last two games because they're not playing well. But that's not because they're not playing for the manager. That's not because they've lost their smiles. It's just because they're off form and they know how costly these two defeats have been. So, yeah, I'm certainly not buying into the even talk that potentially there's not, it's an unhappy camp or anything like that. I just don't buy into it. I just think it's a team that's underperforming at the moment and they're not very happy because they're seeing really, really crucial points slip away. But thank you very much for your comments, everyone. Appreciate them. As always, that's it from me today. Thank you very much for watching or listening. I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. So stay tuned for that. Have a very good day. Bye-bye.